G'day, I'm Neil and my handle is Wiley11. I'm just going to put my disclaimer here. Whatever I do and say on these videos is well-intentioned and well-meaning advice. I accept no liabilities whatsoever for any disclosures. If you take some advice or act on something that I'm saying on these videos, you do so entirely at your own risk. I'm doing it based on my experience. These videos are my attempt to give back to YouTube for the help and assistance that YouTube has given me. So once again, you follow along or follow advice from these videos entirely at your own risk. Okay, and if you're not happy to do that, click this off and off you go. Because this is purely my attempt to give back to YouTube, as I said, for the help and advice that I have received out of YouTube. So this is just my little attempt to give back. If you're happy to follow along at your own risk, buckle up, sit in. Let's get into it. Welcome back. It occurs to me that some of you may feel that I am passing myself off as some sort of an expert in my videos. Some of these subjects I'm very, very knowledgeable. I would never claim to be the expert at anything. The reason for that is that I'm always learning. It doesn't matter how much you know or you think you know, there's always someone who'll come along with a better way or something new to teach you. And to say that I'm an expert at something, well, some things I do know what I'm talking about. Other things I'm just giving it a go. I just wanted to insert this in the video just so that you know that in relation to everything I do on YouTube, I'm basing it on my own experience, and it is subject to be wrong, criticised, whatever. But if this gets you through to the next level where you find an answer or whatever, then I've achieved my goal. I'm not here promoting myself as the expert on everything. I'm not. But I will stand up and have a crack. Like that's it. And if you're willing to do it and follow along, well, do that. And you can see I do all sorts of things. Like there's a fire blanket over there, right? Just at the moment we're a bit out of sorts because there's some repair work going on over here at the window, and there's builders in the joint. So things are moved around, and I'm limited as to what I can work on because I haven't got access to some of the safety features of where I work. So if I can't get to the fire blanket, I don't do anything that's flammable. I sit around and I edit videos. Now, that's it. I just wanted to spell that out. I am not passing myself off as any kind of an expert. I'm simply putting these up on the basis of my experience and my ability to sort of adapt and give something a go. That's it. All right, let's get on with things. Hi, welcome back. Righto, so when I left you, we'd generated a SCAD that looks like this, and now we're up to the point where we're ready to print things out. Now what I'll be doing is swapping cameras a couple of times here, so the goal is to get to the printer in one take. And now part 2 ended up being like almost 2 hours of footage, and I had to break it into 2 parts, part A and B. I do hope that you've gone through part 1, part 2 and are ready to take this on. If you've built your printer and you're just looking to get from whatever it is that you've got in mind to print to a printed product, but you already know how to use the CAD system and you've got that developed, then there's no need to go back through parts 1 and 2. You can just go from here. I'm going to assume that you've got some sort of CAD that, you know, whether that's OpenSCAD, which we've used, or some other thing. There are plenty of internet things around. There's a thing out there called Tinkercad, which is developed for children, which is actually quite powerful. There's other things as well. You know, there's, you know, online solutions. There's other products such as SolidWorks, AutoCAD, 3CAD. Any of the CAD packages can produce your design. What you need to do is you need to take your design from those packages to something that's recognized by 3D printing software. Now, the software we've chosen is Repetier, which is another free product. It's apparently somewhere in Germany, the company that's developed it, and they've opened it under a EULA. It's an open license. And I got my copy when I bought my printer kit, and it came on a little USB stick in the kit. Now, if you've bought a kit, make sure you go through whatever if they've given you a USB stick, make sure you look at it, because there's probably a lot of useful information on that thing. Right, so I'm not going to take you through the process of downloading and installing Repetier. That's something you can work out for yourself. We're using a Windows box and one of these things, a USB cable to our printer. Now, I'm not going to walk you through the printer. The printer itself is a standard. It's a standard kit that I bought on eBay, and I've got a build video on how I built it. So if you want to go through that, by all means do it, because it was quite a frustrating experience. You can see the bloopers I made, and maybe you can avoid them. But what I'm saying is that if you haven't built your own, maybe you've bought one and it came with a disk that you've loaded or whatever it came with, you know, you've still got to get from the design software to what they call an STL file. Now, we're going to talk about how to do that. So we're going to open up on the other camera the existing work that we've done in OpenSCAD, and I'm going to show you using OpenSCAD how to produce your STL file. Now, that STL file will be picked up by the printing software and converted to a sliced file. It converts it again. So you've got to get from one file to another file to yet another file, and then you're ready. The printer can recognize that and it'll go ahead and do it. So it's a convoluted process. Now, I think there are packages out there such as SolidWorks that do it in one step for you. You just nominate the printer and say do it, and it just does it for you. That, of course, is expensive and commercial software, and it can cost a lot of money to get set up in that. But if you're happy to just follow along here, this is the free, not so expensive, poor man's version of how to get your 3D printer up and running. And I've been using these two products compatibly now for quite some time, and they do me just fine, and for whatever reason, they just work. Once you've got your STL file, Repetier will happily take that and produce it into something that you can throw to your printer. All right, so let's get into that. I want you to support my company, nightglowmanufacturing.com. If you don't already know about that, please check out nightglowmanufacturing.com. That's my company, and without your support, I don't get to feed my family and my kids. My kids are 30, but I've got to have some way of supporting the family. And that's my company, and it's a good company. It's got some really cool ideals, and I urge you to check that out. Righto, let's get on with it. We have our project box in the dimensions that we want, 51 by 71, with sides of 7 millimeters high. So I think this one was 7. You can't see it, but the one we have prepared earlier was 7. This is a slightly better design because it's got this cutout to accept the programmer, so we don't have to worry about cutting the box once we've printed it. It's in the orientation we need to print because we've got this beautiful flat bottom which will sit on our bed. Now, don't worry if your design hasn't got that. The printer will make whatever temporary supports it needs to support the fibres of the printer. So it'll actually make a structure to support whatever it needs, and you will cut that away later with whatever. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about this. I want to get into it. So we're just going to render this one more time. This is our render tool. Now, what we've got to do is we've got to prepare it for STL. So we've got to give it the coordinate renders. So this will take our preview. This will actually render the box. And as you can see, it's passing that into an AST. And here you go. It is now given it a file that can be converted into STL. So here we go. We're going to export this to STL. And it wants us to give it a name. And I'm just going to call it nothing more fancy than Project Box. So I'm going to save that. And in a few seconds, here we've got our box ready to print. Now I'm going to open the Repetier software. Here it comes. Now by definition, Repetier out of the box comes with a similar look and feel to what you've just used, except that all of the control stuffs are on this side and all the previous stuff's on this side. So we're going to do a couple of things now. We're going to load this file up that we've just created. And we know it's in Documents, Outreach, Project Box. And here it is. This is our 3D file in a standard format that any printing system can recognize. And here it is, sitting beautifully on our bed. That's our bed in the center. Now we don't need to do anything to this. We don't need to change any of the settings in order to make this happen, because now we've got to slice this up into paper thin slices that the printer can use. So we go into slicing. Now back here I can actually make copies of it. You know, you can copy a design and you can make multiple printouts, but I don't want to do that just yet. I'm just going to do one. In configuration of this thing, you can see that you've got all of these variables that you can change if you want to. And then you can save them in different configurations. As you can see here, I've got cogs which are different configurations, NGEM, testing. I've built them and saved them, and this is where you do that. I'm not going to bother with that. Default works just fine. By default, everything here comes
what
up
you're looking at here
using the default settings.
Computer via
I'm going to close
a USB cable to my 3D printer.
Now, what that does is it produces a system
hooked via USB to the 3D printer.
That it's a little bit conservative, so it's not completely smooth, and it doesn't use a hell of a lot of PLC to produce. Alright, I'm just going to do what? I'm going to go ahead and do this slicing. Now, I can ask it to use different engines to do this somewhere. Let me see this. Okay. Oh, here. Right, you can use Slicer, Prusa Slicer, or Cura engine, and the default. And I've swapped the camera to a new angle. Now what I've done is I'm going to plug my printer in to my computer first using that USB cable that you just saw, and I'm going to turn the printer on and let it warm up. So what's going on is I've given it power, I'm just going to point out a couple of things using this camera. Yeah, okay. I'm going to leave it in the tripod so you might be able to see a few things. Okay, so what's going on? Okay, we're not plugged in. That's the first thing I notice. Oops. Let me try that again. Just give me a second. How does this happen? Every time I go to use something, someone's had a little fiddle with things. Here's the plug. I'm just going to turn all the power off again and we're going to plug in safely. Now, my setup here, because this was built as a kit, that's better, there's noises. Because my printer was built as a kit, it didn't come with some of the standard safety features such as an on-off switch. So I've gotten around that by plugging into this power board with an on-off switch. Here's my roll of material, my filament, and here is the printer. Now it's not ready to go just yet. There's a couple of things we need to do to set up. The first thing you want to make sure of is that this bed is absolutely clean of any debris. And to do that, you just use a piece of tissue paper. Don't use cloth, just use tissue. Just grabbing the tissue. Yeah, just a normal tissue. And I'm just wiping any dust off the tape. Now if you want to know what tape I've used here, here it is. It's a 3M tape, and hopefully I can show you the number in there. 2093, right? That's the number. And I've used this instead of the single sheet because sometimes your nozzle can misfire or misfunction and tear it. And if you're using a single sheet, you've got to destroy the whole sheet every time it happens, which is what I found with this particular kind of printer. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to this hot end and quickly remove anything I can see there. And now we're ready to start printing. I've got a pair of scissors handy just in case I need to quickly snip this filament, right? I shouldn't need to touch that, it should be good to go. There's plenty of filament. Everything is set up. I've got my two tools that I use at the end of the print, sitting here next to the printer. Two spatulas, right? These are actually out of iPhone tools. I use them as, they're pry tools that you use to get the backs of iPhones off. I use them for this. I keep my tissue handy just in case, and I'm ready to print. You want to make sure there are no obstructions anywhere where you've set your printer up. It's got full travel. Mine's set up by design. And now we're going to have two cameras. Hopefully I'll be able to show you both situations, one inside the other. I'm not sure how this is going to go. So what you saw was I plugged the printer in and got it ready. Right, I'm not going to make any changes. You can tweak that if you want to play with the settings, but you might get some unexpected results if you do. So we're just going to go ahead and slice this. And now what you'll see is it's going to go ahead and here's your box. And what this is now a series of mapped movements for the printer head from go to woe. Layer by layer, your printer head will follow those paths, dropping material where you've nominated it to drop the material using your design. So now what you can do is connect your printer. And at this point, I'm just going to pause this recording. So what you saw was I plugged the printer in and got it ready. And now I'm going to connect it using this connect button. Something's going on. Disconnected. Connect, please. Right, see that's changed. Now we're connected. And we can just go straight from there to print. Or we can save our file, our sliced file, our slice file can be saved. So it's called a G code. We can get in and look at it. Here it is. Generated, blah, blah, blah. Here it is. And you can see it's a whole series of coordinates. Right? So it's just moving the print head and telling it what kind of temperature and what kind of rate to push the material through the extruder. That's all it does. I'm going to close that up. Here's your same print preview. This is what your printer's going to do. You can see that we're on the bed. We haven't put it up in the air somewhere. So the printer's not going to have any problems just generating this. So let's just do it. Print. Here we go. Now what I do is I watch the first runs, because what's happening is everything's heating up. And it's zeroing the head at position 0. Now in this printer, position 0 is off the bed. It's worth noting. And that's not a good thing. It's something that I'd like to change one day, make it so that position 0 is always on the head. Now the other thing about this printer is it doesn't wipe the head before it starts printing. You can actually program that in. You can do a cleaning run where it just wipes that head. This particular printer doesn't do that. So I tend to watch the very first activities of the printer. Now, you can see that the printer the hotbed, the H, is at 36 of 50. And the temperature of the extruder is only 27.4, it's only at room temperature. So the printer is just heating up at this point, right? Once that reaches 50 degrees on the right, the one on the left should start. Let me just give this a little bit of stability. We're at 44 degrees, we're still climbing. You've got to be a bit patient with your system sometimes. I am being very patient with it. We're not at 50 degrees. So it's obviously 27 degrees room temperature. It's actually a bit hotter than that. It feels it, it's muggy, humid. Right, and you saw it's reached temperature now, it's swapped over to heating the other element. So it's going up to 210 degrees, the melting point of the plastic filament. Right, when that reaches to 210 degrees, it'll start. $125 degrees and climbing quickly now. 135, 145. Now it's slowing down a bit. 155. Cool, isn't it? Just got to watch it. Now the only thing I've got to make sure of is that we get good adhesion to our bed, right? Once we've got good adhesion, you leave it alone. You don't touch it. Now this filament's been sitting for a while, so I expect there could be a couple of lumps and globules will come out of it at the first sign of print. If they interfere with your print, you've got to shift them out of the road of the print head using your tools while it's moving. Here we go. It's coming down, here we go. We've got nothing coming out just yet. Here we go. It's coming, there we are. See what's going on there? There it is printing. And that's good, I'm happy with that. There's nothing that's going to interfere with that print. If you had any bumps or blobs or anything like that at this stage, you've got to get them off the board real quick. And what it's printing out is that support network at the base, which is way too wide in default mode, but that's fine. It's going to make itself a really lovely support. So there we are. We've moved from our SCAD to printing. I'm going to let you watch that for a bit. It's a bit like watching grass grow, I believe, but some people may find the process interesting. Let's see if we can enhance it so that you can actually get right in on the bed. Let's see if I can frame this a little bit better than that. So you can see that it's moving in the X and Y planes, and we're printing out the first layer. So it won't move in the Z plane until it's finished this whole layer, the first layer that you saw when we used Slicer. Cool. Now what I like about Repetier is it shows you what command it's sent to the printer over here. So you can see it's now printing these diagonals. Now the printer is a little bit behind the computer, obviously. It's here is it shows you what command it's sent to the printer over here. So you can see it's now printing these diagonals. Now the printer is a little bit behind the computer, obviously. Its processor is nowhere near as powerful as my computer's, but you get an idea of where your job is. And you can see that head is travelling backwards and forwards across the surface in a razor thin. It deposits a razor thin layer of 1/10 of 1 millimeter thick. I can pause the print. I've got full control of the printer from here. It's right here. So you can see here I can actually stop the job, turn the printer off. I can pause printing up here. I can kill the print from here. And that's what I like about the software. It takes control of your printer and you don't have to move backwards and forwards. You can actually do it from where you're sitting, right there. So if something goes horribly wrong, such as maybe the filament gets jammed or something breaks or whatever, you can just pause the print where it is, fix the problem and continue the job, and you don't lose it. Now there's another really useful feature of this software. It tells you how much time it's going to take, and up here is 40 odd minutes. Now it's pretty accurate. It's within a couple of minutes. So I'm not gonna record this thing printing for 40 minutes. But what I will do is I'll leave this run and let you observe until our recording stops recording, maybe on the screen. So the idea is that you're going to see this thing emerge. It's like something coming to life. I mean, it has the same ability to zoom in and out as your standard controls for Windows. We're going to orient it the same way in the XYZ planes as the printer is. That's it. So you can see it's actually filling in that base now. Now we said this was going to be 3 mil thick, and at 0.1 of a millimeter it's going to make 30 passes across the bottom before it finishes the bottom of the design. It's at 0.3. Actually, it's telling us here it's 0.3 of a millimeter. All right. So, what does that mean? It's going to take a third. Come on, you can do it. 0.3 of a millimeter times 3. 3.1. Let me. I'm going to do this. It's going to kill me. It's going to take 9. It's going to be 10 passes, isn't it? It's going to be 10 passes exactly to give our 3 millimeter base. So it's sliced it into 10 passes. This is the first of 10 passes it's going to make. I can put that down to 0.1. I could put, you get a much finer result. It uses more material. Also, it's printing at 100% fill here. In the center, it won't use 100 because this is an exposed edge. It's using 100%, but in the middle, it doesn't use 100%. It makes the passes a little bit wider. So, some of the inner layers of this box will take a lot less time. Also, some of the commands are shorter. So each command, you can see the commands being executed down here. Right, so that's what it's executing, and that's the visual representation of. So some of those are going to take a lot less time to execute on the printer than. And I'm going to come back at the end of 5 minutes and turn everything off, and then in about half an hour or so I'm going to come back and show you guys the completed job. You can actually physically hear that thing going faster and faster. Now you can see these ones are a little bit more spaced out. There's a little bit more space in between each of these passes. So there's only about 60% material used until it gets to these outer edges. And you should see it do a pass around the outer edge at 100%. Let's see what happens when it gets to that. Righto, so that comment was actually wrong. What's going on is it's laying this layer in the opposite direction to what it laid the first layer, and you can see it's added 0.2 of a millimeter, but it's now traversing the job in the opposite direction. The first job went in this direction. Right, now this layer goes in the opposite. It crisscrosses it. It gives it a stronger bonding. Okay, I'm going to return you to the video. Let's see if I can do this without mucking everything up. lot happening. It's like watching grass grow. But I'm just going to bring you guys up again. Yeah. What's going on here is I'm moving around the job. I want to try to zoom in. Focusing on the head, not on the job. So there you can see it. The material is being laid down. Piece by piece. I'm going to put it back where it was. So what I'm attempting to do there is to show you that it's laying down quite a coarse layer. It's not as fine as it could be, and that is because, you know, you can get this down to 0.1 of a millimetre per layer, and we didn't slice it up that fine, nor did we want to, because of the nature of this job being an internal project. It's only for internal use, and we're trying to save a bit of material. But you can set these settings to as fine a detail. You can have it as, you know, as smooth as you want. It's just a matter of how you set the settings when you run the slicer tab over here. Righto, I'll return you back to the sound. Back at the computer again. Once more, this is the command it's operating onto. It's already executed 1,200 lines of code. Right, these are the line numbers. You can see here where we're up to. This layer is 0.5, okay. So it's half a mil. This is what we mean by less fill, less detail in the center. Okay, I'm going to correct myself again. This means the job is half a mil high, and it's got to go to 7 millimeters. So I'm just misunderstanding this reading. I thought this was the layer thickness. What it is the Z position. So we're at half a mil high in the job. So just ignore whatever I'm saying here. You can hear it getting quicker and quicker as it goes backwards and forwards. Ding, 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 ding. Each time it's adjusting per micromillimeter. That means that the controls, the stepper motors are active. Guys. Righto, so what you can see here is I'm playing with the zoom. The same controls are available to you in Repetier as are available in Windows. So it functions exactly the same way as Windows functions. So you can use your wheel mouse, you can zoom in and out. And here you can see that the printer. Okay, I've mucked something up here. Thanks. The printer is being commanded, executing each one of these things, and it's being represented to you on this control panel on the left. And you have full control, you know, and this is going to continue now until the job finishes in 30 minutes time. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to record a printer working and a machine showing you status screens for another 30 minutes. I think that would be quite boring. But there are some interesting things coming up. For example, when it starts to print the fill layers between the exposed sheets, it won't print solid. It'll just print a matrix on which it can print the outer layers. So the infill layers are actually quite interesting to look at. And what we might do is we might cut the video here and bring you back in when it's doing the matrix, the infill layers. And you can see I haven't quite mated up the video to where it's up to, because this is obviously at a different point, but you know, it is what it is. I'm not an expert photographer, and I'm not an expert editor either, obviously. Right, I'm going to pause the video here and we're going to go forwards with the next bit. So pause, please. Actually, just pause it. I'll just move this out of the road. Every time you move something, it'll... We're 25 minutes to go. And it's almost finished putting together the grid. We're at 1.9 mil. We want to get this up to, we said it was going to be 3 millimeters. So when it hits 3, it should start giving us a full mesh again. 2.1, come on man, you can do it. And I think when it gets to about 2.6, it'll start giving us a full mesh again. I was wrong about this. This is the Z position. So this is 2.1 out of, when that hits 7, we're at the top. And that's what it bases this on. Right, so obviously I've worked out I made a mistake with that measurement, and it actually doesn't base it on the height. It bases it based on the percentage of commands it's executed in this little status window here. So I don't know how many commands are yet to run, but that is based on the number of these it's executed. So it's a fairly rough estimate, but it's not a bad one. You know, as I said, it's usually within a couple of minutes. Righto, and again, some of these will take less time to execute than others. Back to sound. Not a lot happening. We want to see this hit 3 mil. I'm going to bring you back up on this other camera so you can see that mesh up close. Oops. Yeah. Good. You can see that pretty well. This particular unit, that big yellow nozzle at the front is blowing cold air onto the extruder, so it's cooling that plastic as soon as it hits the job. So as soon as it comes out of the extruder, it's actually solidifying and bonding, so that makes this quite a good printer. It also means that your job is fairly cold once it's finished, and you don't have to wait for it to cure before you can remove it. It'll cure quite quickly. That's what I'm talking about, is that nozzle there. If you want to know more about the printer, I recommend you watch my build of the 3D printer. Okay, I don't know why we didn't stop at 3mm, but we didn't. So obviously there's something wrong with our thick command, because I expected that to stop at 3mm. It happened at the worst time. Here we go, it's filling them in now. 3.9. So I don't know what happened to our thick, but we're a millimetre over the top. Go figure. That might have something to do with this base layer. It puts this down in order to give it a good adhesion. That's something that's done by the printer, it wasn't done by me. But I don't mind that. Again, this is only for internal use, it's not going out to the public, so, you know, I don't particularly care. If it were going out to the public, I would have to sand that back. I would have to shave that 1mm off it. How cool is this? So this is now laying the most, well, if this was going to fail, this is where it will fail, right here. I'm going to bring you in so you can see what's going on. Oh dear, where are we? Oh, we're all over the place we are. Here we are, we're down here. There's the material being deposited. You can see it's only a loose lattice. It's not really tight. It's just giving it a basis to grab on. For the next layer, it'll start becoming tighter and tighter. I reckon the people that invented this are extremely clever. We're running low on battery. Let's hope it lasts the distance. You can see it going on there anyway from that angle. It's just laying that filament down in a very loose arrangement. And as soon as that filament hits the air, it's getting hard. So it's actually providing a matted bed on which to lay down the next layer. Now you can imagine the kind of engineering that goes on. And the professionals and the pride of the people involved in putting this together, to give it to you for free. You know, that's something. That is something. Without them, I wouldn't be here doing this stuff. I'd be mired in a pool of debt, trying to recover. This is possible to do for free, right? And on a small scale, you can do these things. When you get bigger, you've got to get away from 3D printing your things into plastic extrusion, and that's the next level. But you can use your 3D printer to develop your mold. How cool would that be? I can actually print my molds up for this, for the plastic extruder. And we can print them out in metal, in aluminium or something. Although I know that for the extrusion, they have to be in stainless steel, or a high grade of steel. But 3D printers nowadays, they can definitely print out in metal, and glass, and ceramic. All sorts of material can come out of these 3D printers. Human skin comes out of them, I think. Human tissue, whether it's human skin, bone. I know they print bone. Implants, prostheses, teeth. Teeth get 3D printed. Ceramic teeth get 3D printed nowadays. It's cool, inches. 3D printed. There's endless application for this technology, and we're using it to print out a box. That's quite a thick box. I can see it's nearly 4 mil, and that's probably a bit more than I wanted, but that's fine. As you can see that our PCB supports are not completely filled in yet. See that? They're still hollow. So it's finished doing this base layer and it's now working on the walls. So we should soon get up to our relief cut and our PCB support tops. It's ripping through it. I'm sitting here just drinking my cup of tea, absolutely mesmerised by what's happening on the computer screen. Now you guys can see what I'm looking at. I'm just looking here at the value. See here, I can see that the extruder is actually at 207 degrees. It's a little bit colder than the required 210. The bed's spot on. We're at 5.3 millimeters in. We expect it to stop at around 7, maybe 8, depending on what it did with this base. And now you can see the structures are starting to form. Here's our relief cut for, this is our interface for our programmer. Ripping through the level. You can see here we've got our relief in there. This is for the programmer interface. Well, I'm rather impressed by this software. It's pretty cool. Now, I could have bought the print at any time, you know. I could have chosen to do 2 or more of these, but this particular box is a bit thick for my needs. So thicker is going to go back to 2 millimeters from, you know, it was 3, it's going to go back to 2. It's interesting that what we're seeing on the screen is very closely represented by what's happening over there on the printer. It's not as in fine detail, of course, on the printer because we didn't tell it to be 100% fine detail. We told it to be sort of about 60% fine detail. And that's good enough for our needs. And when I'm looking at the box, I can tell you, it looks pretty close to what we're seeing here on the screen. With one exception. As we look at the printer. That's what we're seeing. So this is the front facing the camera. Alright, I think we're starting to see the relief. Here's the relief. Now, here it is. So we've got a 1mm, I think we said 1.5mm to the tops of these from that point. Okay, we just lost the other camera. I ran out of battery. Gosh, okay, so at this point I had problems because I didn't charge the camera up before I started filming and I ran out of battery. And I'm no good at using these things as cameras. I'm terrible at it. But I tried to get it on my little iPhone. As you can see, it's an older one and it doesn't have a lot of storage. So I had all sorts of problems trying to A, free up storage quickly, and then B, get it on camera, and then C, get it off this onto the computer. I'm not real good with these Apple iPhones, you know, and that might sound stupid, but the fact is, you know, I'm not a camera person, never have been. But that said, I'm going to continue moving through this with what footage I have got until I hit the end of it. So just bear with it, and yeah, excuse the camera work. Set this up. I'm going to turn it this way. And sit it there. I just want you guys to see what goes on. So the job's finished. I've set the iPhone up, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the print head up a bit. Now I'm going to push home X. And now I'm going to push home, I want the Y to move out. I want to push the job clear of the printer so that I can get to it. So Y is at its max, X is at 0, and Z's at 15. I'm quite happy now to hit home Z, and the print head will move out of my road. So what that has done is it's put the job out here. You can see when it finished, it gave us a little bit of moving. There it is, a little bit of moving. Right, so there's the job completely, it just popped straight off, and you can see there I've damaged this piece of tape, so I'll need to replace it, which is better than having to replace the whole lot of it. But there's our box, and now I'm going to move to the other PC. So what happened there is we turned the power off, so our printer got disconnected. There's no reason we shouldn't just shut this down now. Let me do that. Here's our original OpenSCAD. So just to recap, it was preview it, render it, create the STL file. Now we didn't use this one. Well, look at that. It's got a 3D print option in OpenSCAD. I didn't even know that was there. I wonder what that does. Let's use it. Print a thing. Okay. Wow, look at this. Oh, it's connecting it to the internet. Righto. So that's an internet service. I don't particularly trust internet services, so I'm quite happy with my Repetier host. But Yep, you can send it to that. You can also send it to the Windows one. Windows has its own 3D print viewer, and it will print out your object to a 3D printer. I don't use any of those. I tend to stick with what I'm familiar with, and I'm familiar with this Repetier host, which is what I've used. This one down here. I'm also familiar with OpenSCAD. I'm going to change this to 2 while I think of it. I want to just change that to 2 because it doesn't need to be 3. It can be 2. I'm just going to save that, and I'm going to close down OpenSCAD. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you will have seen that it's a little bit, you know, it's a bit convoluted getting from one thing to another when you're in the free world. Like my ice cream screen recorder is still free at the moment to me. Pardon me, to me. I need a bit of my cup of tea. It's still here. It's a cup of tea. The coffees are $4.50 again. They go up and down. Some weeks I can get them for $3, and some weeks they cost me $4.50. I forgot how low my stash was, and I bought an emergency one at the full price of $4.50. What I don't understand is how they can sell them at $3 one week and the next week they're $4.50. It's 1/3 as much again, 33 1/3% inflation in 1 week. And then you go back a couple of weeks later and they're back to $3. I have no idea how commercial retailing works. You know, like perishable. Well, they're not even perishable because they last for years and years and years in your cupboard. They're vacuum sealed and freeze dried. They'll last for an eternity. But you know what I'm saying? How does that work? How does it work that one day you go to put petrol in your tank and it's $1.20, and then the next day you go to put it in and it's $1.70? How are people supposed to deal with that in their budgeting? You go to buy a loaf of bread and this week it's $2, and then the next week it's on special at $1.60, and then the following week it's $4.20. You know, and that's to do with the price of flour. And we've got a bushfire crisis going on, so a lot of fields were burned, and there's going to be a shortage of flour. So we're going to be importing flour? Oh, who knows? Who knows what the answer to that is? But the point I make is this: there's no consistency to the cost of living, none. And when you start doing things for yourself, like 3D printing some of the parts you might need for your car, or for your vacuum cleaner, or for some chassis that broke, or some kid's toy that they want the toy but you can't afford. You can 3D print something, and it doesn't have to be the same as what the store's got, but as a kid, I don't know if I've told people this, but as a kid, we never had very much as growing up. We used to go, whatever we wanted, we couldn't afford to buy it. That wasn't us. And other people would buy stuff, like if we'd go to the park and there'd be people there with these store-bought kites, and they'd be doing loop-de-loops and whoop-de-whoops and you name it. And if I wanted a kite, I went down to the creek and cut a couple of reeds up, found a bit of plastic somewhere, and glued things together and strung it all together, and found someone's tangled mess of string and used that, and untangled it, and that was my kite. And it worked just as well as the ones that were store-bought and that we couldn't afford. I learned to make do with what I could make with my hands. Matchbox cars. I can remember when they came out in Australia in a big way, the Hot Wheels series. I can remember that. It's in the 60s. I was growing up, and the big rage was Hot Wheels cars and Barbies. Barbies was the other thing. Hot Wheels cars and Ken and Barbie dolls. In the 70s, the dolls thing took off in a different direction for blokes, but in the 60s, it was all about these little matchbox cars. And, the wheels used to spin pretty good because they got them on a thing that wheels would spin pretty good. Where I'm going with this is I couldn't afford matchbox cars, so what I would do is I would wait for someone to get frustrated with his car and smash the living crap out of it with a rock. Because we used to race them down gutters and things. You know, we never had tracks. We made our own tracks. We'd race them down the sides of hills and gutters. And if someone got the shits with his car and he had a fair, you know, he was a bit well off, he wouldn't give a shit about the damn thing. They'd even pick them up and throw them out into the bush. And I used to go on a little bush hunt. You know, on the weekends I'd come back to school and I'd go down the back paddock where the kids throwing all their cars and all their broken ones, and I'd collect them all. I'd take them home, and out of all these broken bits, I'd make my own. I'd make my own car. And if I didn't have the correct body, I would make my body out of wood. I'd carve it up, and I'd rock up at the track with something with wheels on it that worked. Looked like nothing on earth, but it used to beat them. And they'd get frustrated and throw their cars on, and I'd go get another lot, you know. It was the same with marbles. I got good at marbles. I couldn't afford them, but I used to win them, you know. I got good at marbles, and I got good at things, and I got very handy at make and do with what I had. And 3D printing is no different to that. And to me, it's one of the best cost-saving inventions ever. So when your tea goes up and when your coffee goes up $1.50 a week, you can come home to your 3D printer and think, maybe I can make something for the kids. You know, maybe I could, you know, I don't know what I can make, but maybe I can come at some. I was in the Lego shop the other day, and don't get me wrong, love Lego. I love playing with Lego with the kids and whatnot. But they had this Star Wars thing there, Star Destroyer, $1,100. $1,100. And if I could get someone to pay me $1,100 for a piece of recycled plastic, my God, you know, I'd be doing it all day long. But at this point, Legos, I think they're made of recycled plastic. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But you know what I'm saying. This is a piece of plastic that they want $1,100 for because it's shaped like something that's come out of Star Wars. $1,100. Well, I can't afford $1,100. You know, I can't afford that. But if I wanted to make a Star Wars destroyer, I'd get the shape and I'd design it and I'd do it and then I'd carve it up and I'd 3D print it, and I can do that. I can do that now. It takes time and it takes patience, but you'll get there. And you put your whole design down, and you don't need to tell Mr. Star Wars that you're doing all that because you're essentially stealing his design and his copyright. Provided you're doing it for yourself, I don't see a problem with that. If you start selling the designs on the internet, well, you're definitely in breach of Mr. Star Wars. But that's not what it's about. It's that, oh, the kid wants one, and we can't afford the $1,100. Well, now you've got a 3D printer. Why can't you just 3D print the major components of one, put them together, sand them down, paint them? Here you go, Mr. Kid. Here's your Star Wars thing. This is what I'm saying. It's just a matter of having the patience to sit down with it. You can get all this gear for about $250. I think that's what it cost me for that, $250. Cost me a bit more because I added some bits to it, but you know what I'm saying. A 3D printer, it opens the door to all the things your kids want and that you want and blah, 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 that can be 3D printed and delivered. I think my wife wants a fruit bowl, and you know, we went to the shops and the thing she picked out was $280. It was a bit of plastic, and I thought, well, you know what, I can 3D print that. And I can. I can 3D print it, sand it back, put some body filler into it and paint it, and no one would ever know that it was made on the 3D printer. Alright, enough said. I want you to make good decisions and do good things. The reason I did all of this was to show you how to get from something that you bought on eBay as a kit to something that's useful. You know, this is useful, right? It's doing a job for me, and it's quite useful. I might have to put this back into the other box, I think. I'm just going to rip that out of there. I'll put it back into the original box. I can use this for a different project. That's fine. I've got another one to do. But I know that the board's going to fit nicely. Right? It's going to fit beautifully in there. Make good decisions and do good things. I've shown you a lovely way of getting from A to B for free. You know, for free. There aren't too many people out there willing to do that, but the people that put Repetier software out, if you download their software or whatever, then you should donate to their website, okay? And the same with OpenSCAD. You should donate to Mr. OpenSCAD.org, whatever it is, website, and support them, because they've done that. There's an enormous amount of work that's gone into those programs, enormous amount of work, and they've done that for free to you. And the only way they can continue to do that is if you support them. And I'm no different. The only way I can continue to deliver free advice on YouTube is if you guys support my company, nightglowmanufacturing.com. Now, make good decisions and do good things. And if you don't think you can do something, just give it a go. Just get into it, and before you know it, you'll have done it, and it'll give you a bit more confidence to tackle the next one. Don't go out there into dangerous situations. If you don't know what you're doing and you know it's dangerous, don't do it, right? Don't do that, because you get seriously hurt. And Mr. Wally one told me to go out and do it anyway. Well, no, I didn't say that. I said, if it's something that's holding you back, that you can see, and it's just there, do it the right way. Get your act together, and just take the step. Just get into it. Make a plan. Do it. That's what I'm saying. And if you're hurting someone else by doing it, then don't do it. Right? Don't do anything. It's a good decision and a good thing. That's it. A good decision, a good thing, and just get into it. Right. I hope I've cleared all that up. About as clear as Monday said. Listen, I'm a bit crook. I don't know how this is going to go. This week I'm going into hospital. It could be a couple of months, could be a couple of days. I don't know. I don't know what the end of this is. A bit scared about it, but I'm putting these videos up to give back. And you know what I'm saying. It's not about me. It's not about anything other than what's the word I'm looking for? Pass on the good deed. It's the empathy. It's the feeling of you did something, you achieved something. Well, I've achieved something with this video. I've done what I set out to do. I said I was going to show you how to get from building your kit to printing out. Well, that's it. This is it. This is the end of that journey and the end of this series. So I want you to make your good decision, do good things, subscribe to the Wally11. If there's more videos to come, great. It means I'm up and running and going again. But right now I'm extremely crook, and I'm going to be out of action for a bit. I wanted to get this done before I went into hospital. I don't know what the deal's going to be on the other side of that, but we're going to find out. I care very deeply for everyone around me, and yeah, like and subscribe. I don't know what else to tell you. Support nightglowmanufacturing.com. If you keep buying the product in there, then I know that my family will be taken care of. That they'll have a residual, no matter what happens to me, and that's the deal. That's the big deal. Righto. Thank you for tuning in. This has been another Wally11 wandering episode of how to use your 3D printer.